A teenager, tossed aside by his own family, replaced by a sibling they thought was superior, was dumped at his grandpa's house like a piece of beat-up furniture. They told him he was worthless, but the old man who took him in taught him everything his parents never could: dignity, hard work, and unconditional love. Now, 6 years later, that grandfather has just passed away, and the exact same parents who threw him away are showing up at the funeral home with their hands out. What do they want? What the old man left behind. And the question is simple. Is he going to give it to them? The call came in at 3:47 inches the morning. I was asleep in the vinyl hospital chair, my hand still gripping my grandpa's. The nurse touched my shoulder, and she didn't need to say a word. I felt his hand colder than it had been a minute ago, and I knew Arthur Thomas Miller was gone. Hey, my name is Jake. I'm 20 years old. I'm an auto mechanic. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, and I eat bacon, eggs, and hash browns almost every single morning. I like my coffee black. I wake up at 5:30 a.m., and on Sundays I wash my truck in the driveway while listening to the radio. My life is simple, but what's behind that simplicity isn't. That early morning in the hospital, while I was signing the death certificate, my phone buzzed. A text message. The name on the screen chilled me more than my grandpa's hand. Asterisk. Mom asterisk. I hadn't called her that in 6 years. The message read, Asterisk Jake, we heard. We are so sorry. We need to talk to you. It's important. Asterisk. I let out a short laugh that sounded more like a bark. The nurse looked at me funny. You all right, sweetie? She asked. Yeah, I told her. It's just that some people have a sixth sense for smelling an inheritance. I put the phone in my pocket without replying. I had more important things to do, like organizing the funeral for the only man who ever actually loved me in this world. By 7 a.m., I was already at the funeral parlor. Mr. Higgins, the director, had known my grandpa for 40 years. Your grandpa already had everything paid for, kid, he told me, sliding a manila folder across the desk. He even picked out the casket. Oak. He said pine was for cheapskates. I laughed, wiping my eyes. That was exactly him. And your folks? Are they coming down? The question hit me right in the chest. My folks? What folks? My grandpa was my family. I don't know, I told him. I don't know. And I don't want to know. But I knew they would come, because at 8:15, the second text arrived. Asterisk Jake, your dad and I are heading out. We'll be there tomorrow. We need to be present. Asterisk. Asterisk. Present. Asterisk. The word burned the back of my throat. Where were they present for the last 6 years? Where were they when my grandpa had his first bad fall? When he got his knee replaced? When he started forgetting the names of the streets in our neighborhood? I dialed Chloe's number. My girlfriend's voice was thick with sleep. He's gone, Chloe, I said, unable to soften the blow. I'm on my way, she answered immediately. Don't move. And my parents are coming. A long silence. Do you want me there when they show up? I times need times you there when they show up. I hung up and sat on the curb outside the funeral home. The morning sun was already getting hot. A stray dog wandered over and laid down at my feet, almost like he knew. I scratched him behind the ears. At least you're loyal, I muttered. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't my mother. It was Mr. Davis, my grandpa's estate lawyer. Asterisk Jake. I am so sorry for your loss. Arthur left me very clear instructions. We need to meet after the service. There is a will and a letter for you. Asterisk, asterisk, just for me. Asterisk. I sat there processing that. My grandpa had left me a letter. During the last 3 months, when things got really bad, when the diabetes was finally winning the fight, there were moments he would squeeze my hand and say strange things. Asterisk. It's all sorted out, kiddo. Don't let anyone take what's yours. Asterisk. I thought he was just delirious. Now I understood he was planning. At 10 a.m., I went to the shop. I opened up just like any regular Monday, because my grandpa taught me that work doesn't wait for grief. I checked the clipboard. An oil change, a tune-up, and a clutch job that had been waiting 3 days for parts. The tools were exactly where they always were, hung on the pegboard by size. exactly how my grandpa arranged them 30 years ago. The smell of degreaser and hot metal calmed me down more than any hug ever could. Ben, the guy who helps me out, walked in at 10:15. Jake, man, what are you doing here? You should be home resting. If I stay in that house, I'll lose my mind. Toss me the 9/16 wrench. Ben didn't ask any more questions. We worked in total silence for 3 hours. At 1 p.m., while I was cleaning out a carburetor, my phone rang. It was an area code from Chicago. I let it ring. Standing there on the hot concrete, with a phone that wouldn't stop vibrating, I finally understood why my parents were in such a rush to be present. They weren't coming for the funeral. They were coming for what came times after times the funeral. The viewing started at 4 p.m., and my parents still hadn't arrived. But before I talk about them, I need to explain how a 14-year-old kid ends up living with his grandfather like he's an orphan. I was the older of two boys. My brother, Luke, was born when I was 2. From day one, he was different. Not different as a person, different in how they treated him. Luke got straight A's. I got C's and B's. Luke played the cello. I took apart the toaster to see how it worked. Luke was polite, quiet, and neat. I was loud, curious, and asked way too many questions. My mom, Brenda, started comparing me to him out loud when I was 11. "Why can't you just be like your brother?" she'd say, looking over my report card. "Look at him. I don't even have to tell him to study. I times do times study, Mom." Well, it doesn't show. My dad, Greg, was worse, but in a different way. He didn't yell, he just ignored me. If Luke talked about something from school, my dad would put his phone face down and listen. If I started talking, he just kept scrolling. One Christmas, when I was 13, my dad bought Luke a brand new iPad. He got me a sweater. It wasn't the gift that hurt, it was the tag. Luke's tag said, asterisk, to my pride and joy. Asterisk. Mine said, asterisk, Merry Christmas, Jake. Asterisk. My grandpa was there that night. I saw his jaw clench when I opened my gift. He didn't say anything right then, but when we went out to the back porch, he put his heavy hand on my shoulder. "Kid, a man's worth isn't decided by a piece of cardboard." "I know, Grandpa." "No, you don't. But you will. I promise you that." Once during a parent-teacher conference, my shop teacher told my mom I had a real talent for mechanics and drafting, and that I should look into vocational programs. My mom answered right in front of me, "That's not a real career. We want something better for him." But the something better never happened. Because to them, I wasn't worth the investment. Luke's private cello lessons cost $400 a month. When I asked to enroll in a summer auto electrical course that cost $150, my dad said it wasn't in the budget. "What about Luke's cello?" I asked. "That's different," my dad said. "The cello is culture. And fixing an engine? What's that? Don't talk back to me, Jake." My grandpa found out and paid for the course himself. It was the first time someone placed a bet on me. He'd drive me every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., wait in the parking lot reading the newspaper, and pick me up at noon. On the way home, we'd stop at a food cart for chili dogs, and he'd ask me to explain exactly what I learned. Every single Saturday. Without fail. 6 months later, when I was 14, the bomb went off. It was a Friday in June. I came home from school and found a duffel bag on my bed, my clothes folded inside. My mom was in the kitchen making dinner like absolutely nothing was happening. "What is this?" I asked, pointing toward the hallway. "Sit down, Jake." My dad walked in from the living room. Luke wasn't home. They had conveniently sent him to a friend's house. "Your mother and I have been talking," my dad said, not looking me in the eye. "We think it would be best for you to go stay with your grandpa for a season." "A season?" "He has the space. You need structure. There's too much conflict here." "Conflict? What conflict?" My mom chimed in with that specific voice she used to sound reasonable while being completely cruel. "Jake, we just aren't functioning as a family right now. You need attention that we simply cannot provide. Your grandfather can give it to you. And Luke? Is he going too?" Silence. That was the answer. "So, you're just throwing me out." "Stop being dramatic," my dad sighed. "You packed my bags without even asking me. What the hell do you call it?" My mom looked at my dad. My dad looked at the floor. "It's temporary," she repeated. "For how long?" until things settled down. They called my grandpa. He was there in 20 minutes. He walked through the front door, looked at me, looked at the duffel bag, and then looked at my dad with an expression I had never, ever seen on his face. It was pure disgust. "This is what you do with your own boy, Greg?" he growled. "You toss him out like an old pair of boots?" "Dad, don't start." "I'm not starting. I'm finishing. I'm taking the boy. But let me make one thing crystal clear. The day you regret this, it's going to be too late." My grandpa grabbed my bag with one hand and my shoulder with the other. Right before we walked out, my mom said something that got burned into my brain forever. "He's just useless, Arthur. He's not like Luke." My grandpa stopped in the doorway. He didn't even turn around. The only one who's useless is a father who's too blind to see what he's got. He slammed the door. I climbed into his beat-up Chevy. It smelled like motor oil and cheap diner coffee. It smelled like safety. That was the last time I ever lived with my parents. The season never ended, because it was never meant to be temporary. Let's go back to the funeral. 4:30 p.m. The room smelled like white lilies and floor wax. There were about 30 people there. Neighbors, guys from the shop, Mrs. Gable who brought donuts to the garage every Tuesday. Real people. People who actually gave a damn about him. Chloe was standing next to me, her hand rubbing my back. Mr. Higgins had set up the photo I picked out. Grandpa in the shop, wearing his greasy coveralls, grinning from ear to ear. That's how I wanted him remembered. Not in a hospital bed hooked up to machines. At 5:15 the heavy double doors opened, and I felt the air shift in the room before I even turned my head. My mom walked in first. She looked thinner, her hair dyed a blonde that didn't suit her. Behind her was my dad, sporting a gray beard and a suit that was too tight across the middle. And behind them, Luke, 18 years old, tall, wearing wire-rimmed glasses. I hadn't laid eyes on them in 6 years. 6 years. And the very first emotion that hit me wasn't anger, and it wasn't sadness. It was absolutely nothing. My mom walked right toward me, throwing her arms open. "Oh, my sweet boy," she said, her voice cracking. I took a step back. Her hug closed on empty air. "Hello," I said, my voice as dry as concrete. Her face fell. The sting of rejection flashed across her eyes, but she pulled it together fast. She was always good at that. "Jake, please? We are here for your grandpa. Are you?" I shot back. "Because if you were here for him, you would have shown up when his heart was still beating." My dad stepped up. "This isn't the time, Jake. You're right. It's not. So take a seat, and don't make a scene." They sat in the very back row. Chloe squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she whispered. "No. But I will be." The service went on. I spoke. Mr. Higgins spoke. Mrs. Gable cried so hard she couldn't even finish her sentence. My parents didn't say a word. They had absolutely nothing to say about a man they hadn't bothered to visit in over half a decade. After the burial, out in the cemetery parking lot, exactly what I knew would happen, happened. My dad walked over as I was unlocking the door to the Silverado. "Jake, we really need to sit down and discuss your grandfather's estate." They didn't even wait for the dirt to settle on the grave. "There's nothing to discuss," I told him. "I am his son. I have legal rights. You have whatever the will says you have." My mom stepped up, her face still damp with tears that were starting to look like cheap theater props. "Jake, your grandpa owned the house, the garage, this truck, the acres out in Butler County. That is family heritage. It can't all just fall into the hands of a 20-year-old kid. A 20-year-old kid who wiped his face and managed his meds while you guys were playing perfect family up in Chicago. That's not fair," my mom pleaded. Asterisk, fair. Asterisk, I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "You're going to stand there and talk to me about what's fair? You? The woman who told me I was completely useless? I never said that. You said exactly that." Asterisk. "He's just useless, Arthur. He's not like Luke." Asterisk. June 28th. A Friday. It was 7:40 p.m. Do you want me to tell you what we were having for dinner? Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. I remember the smell because it was the last thing I ever smelled in that house. My mom went ghost white. My dad stared at the asphalt. Luke, standing 10 feet back, looked like he was praying for a sinkhole to swallow him whole. "We'll see you at Mr. Davis's office," I said. "You'll find out what my grandpa decided. And whatever he decided is exactly what's going to happen." I slammed the truck door, cranked the engine, and Chloe climbed in the passenger side without a word. I pulled out of the cemetery without checking the rearview mirror. On the drive home, Chloe broke the quiet. "How do you feel?" Like somebody took a flathead screwdriver and pried open an old scab. "Your mom looked desperate." "She is desperate, and not for me." Chloe didn't say anything else. She just slid her hand over mine on the center console. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I sat in the living room in my grandpa's ugly green recliner, nursing a mug of cold coffee. I checked my phone. My mom had sent 3 more texts. Asterisk. "Don't be vindictive." Asterisk. Asterisk. "Your father is hurting." Asterisk. Asterisk, "Jake, could you at least give us a hint about what the will says?" Asterisk. I didn't reply. But that third text confirmed everything. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask if I needed help with anything. 3 hours after watching her father-in-law get lowered into the dirt, all she cared about was the paperwork. At 2 a.m., Luke sent me a separate text. Asterisk. "I am so sorry about all of this. I didn't want to come, but Mom dragged me. I'm sorry." Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk, "I believe you." Asterisk. But my hands were shaking holding the phone, because deep inside, the 14-year-old kid with the duffel bag was still standing in that kitchen, listening to his mother say he was a waste of space. 3 days later, we were all sitting in Mr. Davis's office. Beige walls, a ceiling fan that ticked on every rotation, and a tension so thick you could carve it with a hunting knife. On one side of the mahogany desk, me and Chloe. On the other, my dad, my mom, and Luke. In the middle, Mr. Davis, holding a thick folder, wearing the tired face of a guy who has watched this exact movie 100 times. "Before I read the document," Mr. Davis started, adjusting his glasses, "I need to inform all parties that Arthur updated his will exactly 6 months ago, of sound mind and body. 2 witnesses and his primary care physician signed off on his mental capacity. I am making this perfectly clear in case anyone in this room is entertaining the thought of contesting it." He looked dead at my dad when he said it. My dad shifted in his leather chair. "Just read it," he muttered. Mr. Davis opened the folder. Asterisk I, Arthur Thomas Miller, being of sound mind, declare the following. To my grandson, Jake Miller, I leave the entirety of my estate. This includes the primary residence located on Elm Street, Miller and Grandson Auto Repair, including all equipment and the client roster, the 1,998 Chevrolet Silverado, the 50 acres of land in Butler County, and savings account ending in 8,842. Asterisk Mr. Davis read the final balance out loud. Asterisk $85,000. Asterisk. The silence in the room was absolute violently loud. My mom opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again. My dad finally choked out. He left absolutely nothing to his own son? Mr. Davis flipped the page. To my son, Gregory Miller, I leave a sealed letter, which is to be opened and read in the presence of my attorney. He pulled a heavy white envelope from the file and slid it across the desk. My dad picked it up. His hands were trembling. He tore it open and read it to himself. I watched his face drain of color, flash bright red, and finally settle into a sickly pale gray. What does it say, Greg? My mom hissed. My dad swallowed hard. He says he wrote me out because I wrote my own son out first. He says a man who abandons a 14-year-old boy doesn't deserve a dime. And he says, if I try to drag this into probate court, there is a lockbox with every single receipt. Bank statements proving he paid my college tuition, paid for our wedding, and put down the down payment for our house in Chicago. He says any judge will take one look and rule that I already received my inheritance while he was alive. My mom snatched the paper right out of his hands. She scanned it herself, her breathing getting heavy. When she finished, she crumpled it up in her fist. This is just sick revenge, she spat out. That crazy old man did this to punish us. Ma'am, Mr. Davis said, his voice dropping an octave. I will ask you not to disrespect my late client in my office. It's the truth. He poisoned Jake against us. My grandpa didn't poison me against anyone. I cut in, keeping my voice dead level. You guys did a perfectly fine job of that yourselves when you threw me out of my own house like a stray dog. We had our reasons, my mom yelled. You were difficult. You wouldn't listen. You talked back to your father. I was 14. I was a kid. Kids talk back. You don't throw them away because of it. Luke spoke up for the very first time. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Jake, I didn't have anything to do with it. I was 8. I looked at him. I didn't feel an ounce of anger toward him. I never had. I know, Luke, none of this is on you. My mom wasn't backing down. We are going to contest this. This will was drafted under duress. Jake spent 6 years manipulating an elderly man. Manipulating? Mr. Davis raised an eyebrow. He opened a second file. I have sworn affidavits from the witnesses. I have the medical clearance. And I have one more thing. Arthur recorded a video message 3 months before he passed. Would you like me to play it? My mom wasn't backing down. We are going to contest this. This will was drafted under duress. Jake spent 6 years manipulating an elderly man. Manipulating? Mr. Davis raised an eyebrow. He opened a second file. I have sworn affidavits from the witnesses. I have the medical clearance. And I have one more thing. Arthur recorded a video message 3 months before he passed. Would you like me to play it? There was my grandpa, sitting in his green recliner, the one that smelled like coffee and old newspapers. He looked gaunt, but his eyes were sharp as tacks. He looked straight into the camera lens. Asterisk Greg. If you're watching this, it means I'm dead, and you're sitting in a fancy office pitching a fit about the money. I know you, son. You take after your mother. God rest her soul. But you listen to me very carefully. Jake took care of me for 6 years. He drove me to the clinic. He cooked my meals. He put up with me when I was being a stubborn old mule. You didn't even pick up the phone on Christmas. Jake is more of a son to me than you ever were, and what's mine is his. If you want to fight him for it, go ahead and fight. But you're gonna lose. Because I made damn sure you would. Asterisk. The video cut to black. My dad had his face buried in his hands. My mom was glaring at the blank screen like she wanted to put her fist through it. The document is ironclad, Mr. Davis said softly. You can hire a lawyer to contest it, but I assure you, you will be burning money you will never get back. My dad stood up. He looked at me. For the first time in 6 years, I saw something genuine in his eyes. It wasn't love, it was regret. But regret that only shows up when you lose your wallet isn't really regret. It's just math. Let's go, he told my mom. No, this isn't over, she shrieked. Jake, you are an ungrateful brat. We gave you life. You gave me life, and then you took it away, I said flatly. My grandpa gave it back. End of story. My dad stood up. He looked at me. For the first time in 6 years, I saw something genuine in his eyes. It wasn't love. It was regret. But regret that only shows up when you lose your wallet isn't really regret, it's just math. Let's go, he told my mom. No, this isn't over, she shrieked. Jake, you are an ungrateful brat. We gave you life. You gave me life, and then you took it away, I said flatly. My grandpa gave it back. End of story. My mom spun on Mr. Davis, pointing a shaking finger at him. You're in on this. A senile old fool and a crooked lawyer, that's what this is. Mr. Davis didn't even blink. He opened his top drawer, pulled out a sleek business card, and slid it across the desk. That is the number for my personal defense attorney. You can call him if you'd like to make accusations. He charges $400 an hour. My dad grabbed my mom by the bicep. Enough, Brenda. We are leaving. Let go of me. I am not going to sit here while this little... I said enough. It was the very first time I had ever heard my dad yell at my mom. The silence that hit the room after that was heavier than lead. My mom froze, breathing hard, the crumpled letter still crushed in her hand. Luke stood up first. He looked at me for a split second, gave a tiny, almost invisible nod, a silent apology, and walked out the door. My parents followed him. The heavy oak door slammed shut, echoing off the beige walls. Mr. Davis took off his glasses and looked at me. Your grandfather was a remarkably smart man, kid. I nodded, but I couldn't speak. I had a lump in my throat the size of a baseball. The next few weeks were like a silent earthquake. My mom called me 11 times. I didn't answer a single one. She sent massive text paragraphs that swung wildly from calling me names to begging me for help. Asterisk. You're just as stubborn as him. Jake, please, we are your family. That money should belong to your father. Can you at least front us some cash? Your dad is underwater. Asterisk. There it was, the ugly, naked truth. They were underwater. That's why they rushed to the funeral. That's why they squeezed out tears at the cemetery. It wasn't grief. It was financial panic. I blocked my mom's number on a Tuesday afternoon while I was eating a sandwich in the garage. It was the calmest decision I ever made in my life. No drama, no crying. I just tapped the screen and took another bite of turkey. A week later, my dad tried a different angle. He sent me a massive email, 4 paragraphs long. The first paragraph was an apology. The second explained how the economy in Chicago had ruined his business. The third suggested we combine assets and manage the garage together as a family. The fourth asked for a $20,000 loan to keep the bank from foreclosing on their house. 4 paragraphs. The apology was 1. The shakedown for cash was 3. The math told the whole story. I deleted the email. Luke texted me separately a couple of weeks later. His message was completely different. Asterisk Jake. I don't want a dime. I just wanted to say I am so sorry for what they did to you. I was a kid and I couldn't stop it. But I get it now. If you ever want to grab a beer or just talk, I'm around. Asterisk. I texted him back. Asterisk. Thanks, Luke. I don't hold anything against you. Whenever you're ready, you can come down to Pittsburgh. The door is always open. Asterisk. That was the only door I left open, and it was my time's choice to open it, not theirs. The shop is doing great. I changed the sign out front. It still says Times Miller and Grandson asterisk, because my grandpa always called me his boy. I roll the bay doors up at 7:00 a.m., and I pull them down at 6:00 p.m. On Fridays, I give a discount to the local cab drivers, just like he used to. On Saturday afternoons, I wipe down every single wrench by hand, exactly how he taught me, and I grease the press like it's a religious ritual. The house still smells like black coffee and motor oil. I hung his picture right by the front door. The one from the funeral, greasy coveralls, big grin. Chloe moved in with me about a month ago. Our first night, while we were eating takeout at my grandpa's old kitchen table, she looked at me and said something that broke me down and put me back together all at once. He'd be really proud of you, Jake. I know, I told her. And that's all I need. My parents never contested the will. They didn't have the cash to put a lawyer on retainer. The irony is almost poetic. They desperately needed my inheritance to afford to steal my inheritance. I don't hate them. Carrying around hate is exhausting, and I have a business to run. But I haven't forgiven them either. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, and nobody has the right to demand it from you. My parents made a calculated choice when I was 14. They looked at their 2 kids, picked the one that looked better on paper, and threw the other one in the trash. They lived 6 years without making a phone call, without asking if I was alive, without showing up. My grandpa taught me the one lesson they were too blind to learn. Loving somebody isn't about picking the option that's easiest. It's about standing by the person who needs you to stand by them. He stood by me. They walked away. And by the time they finally decided to come knocking, the locks had already been changed. If you're reading this, and you feel the way I felt at 14 standing in a hallway with a duffel bag you didn't pack, rejected by the blood that was supposed to protect you, I need you to hear this loud and clear. Your worth is times, not times determined by the people who walk away from you. It is determined by the people who stay. And sometimes, one single person who actually sees you is worth 100 times more than an entire family looking the other way. My name is Jake. I'm 20 years old. I'm a mechanic. And the man who made me who I am is buried on a hill overlooking Pittsburgh under a stone that says, Asterisk Arthur Thomas Miller. Father, grandfather, and the most stubborn man alive. Asterisk. He would have loved that. Now, let's take a step back and break down exactly why everyone in this story did what they did. Because when we understand the times why asterisk, a lot of things that feel insane suddenly make perfect sense. Asterisk asterisk. Why did Jake's parents dump him at his grandpa's? Asterisk asterisk. This wasn't a snap decision made on a random Tuesday. It was the result of years of treating their kids like stock portfolios. Luke was yielding a high return. He fit the mold of the perfect, cultured kid. Jake didn't. When someone fails to meet your rigid expectations, you have two choices: adjust your expectations or get rid of the person. Greg and Brenda chose the latter. The brutal truth is they didn't do it out of pure, cartoonish evil. In their twisted logic, they were cutting their losses and investing entirely in the golden child. The problem? A child is not a project. And when you treat someone like one, they figure out exactly where they stand in your hierarchy. Asterisk, asterisk. Why did Grandpa Artie step in without hesitation? Asterisk, asterisk. Because he understood the exact thing his son was too arrogant to grasp. Love isn't about convenience. Artie didn't rescue Jake out of pity. He rescued him because he actually saw times him. Being truly seen by just one person can rewrite your entire life. Those 6 years weren't a charity case. They were a real relationship built on Saturday morning chili dogs and teaching a kid how to turn a wrench. Artie knew exactly what he was doing when he wrote that will. It wasn't spite. It was justice. He simply left his legacy to the person who actually showed up for it. Asterisk, asterisk. Why did the parents only show up for the funeral? Asterisk, asterisk. This is the part that stings the most, but you have to look at it objectively. They didn't ask Jake if he was okay. They didn't ask if he needed a hot meal. 3 hours after the dirt hit the casket, Brenda was texting about the will. That isn't a lapse in judgment. That is a blaring siren telling you exactly what their priorities are. They didn't drive down from Chicago to heal old wounds. They drove down because they were drowning in debt. And creditors are a lot scarier than a guilty conscience. Asterisk, asterisk. Why did Jake feel calm instead of furious? Asterisk, asterisk. Because pure rage requires an element of surprise. And deep down in a place he couldn't verbalize, Jake already knew exactly who his parents were. What he felt in that cemetery parking lot wasn't a fresh betrayal. It was the final, undeniable confirmation of a truth he had carried since he was 14. And when you finally confirm a horrible truth you've been carrying in secret, the overriding emotion isn't anger. It's relief. The kid with the duffel bag didn't vanish, but he finally had closure. Asterisk. Asterisk. What does Jake's text to his brother mean? Asterisk. Asterisk. This is the ultimate proof of Jake's character. He didn't block Luke. He told him the door was open. That is the mark of someone who can separate the abusers from the bystanders. Luke was 8 years old when the family split. He had zero power. The easy, bitter route would have been to burn the whole bridge. The mature, difficult route was to judge his brother based on who he is now, not who their parents raised him to be. Asterisk, asterisk. The takeaway. Asterisk, asterisk. 1. Your value is never defined by those who abandon you. It is defined by those who stick around. 2. When people ghost you during the hard times but magically appear when there is money on the table, it's not a coincidence. It's a confession. 3. Forgiveness is not a requirement for peace. You can move forward without harboring hate, but you don't owe anyone absolution. They are two different things. 4. Sometimes, an old man who buys you lunch and teaches you how to change a tire is worth more than the DNA in your veins. What would you have done if you were in Jake's boots? Would you have left the door open for your brother, or would you have locked them all out for good? Let me know in the comments below on my channel.